Modern air defense systems cost billions of dollars to design, build, and maintain. Yet right now, some of the most sophisticated radar and interceptor networks on Earth are being overwhelmed by flying machines that cost less than a used car. These cheap, disposable weapons can be launched from the back of a pickup truck in the middle of a desert, striking targets hundreds of miles away with terrifying precision. To understand how global combat reached this bizarre financial tipping point, we have to look back to 1979. At the time, Iran actually boasted the fifth strongest military on the planet. They patrolled the skies using the absolute cutting edge of American aerospace engineering, like the F-14 Tomcat. Then, the government collapsed. The Shah fled, and the American technicians who maintained that massive fleet packed up and left. Almost overnight, the most advanced air force in the Middle East was grounded, turning expensive fighter jets into heavy metal paperweights. When Iraqi forces crossed the border a year later, Iranian soldiers found themselves fighting blind. Without jets in the air, they had no way to track enemy troop movements or spot incoming artillery. The complete loss of their aerial dominance backed the nation into a corner. They either had to figure out a completely new way to see over the horizon, or accept total defeat. Inside a simple student workshop at Isfahan University, 3 young men, a civilian pilot, a physics student, and a professional jeweler, began to brainstorm. If they couldn't put pilots in the sky, they reasoned they could send up small, remote-controlled planes equipped with basic cameras to act as invisible scouts over enemy lines. Economic embargoes meant they couldn't import actual military hardware, so they scavenged. They built their first prototype out of scrap plastic boards, and for the fuel tank, they used a medical IV bag taken from a local hospital. When they proudly presented this creation to military commanders, the generals laughed at them. To the hardened soldiers, it looked exactly like a child's toy. But those generals missed the point. Because these students had zero access to traditional defense contractors or expensive metals, they were designing something completely foreign to modern militaries, a weapon meant to be entirely disposable. In 1983, they took their plastic aircraft 40 kilometers past the front lines. Against all odds, it flew perfectly, snapping clear photographs of Iraqi military positions and returning to base intact. The laughing stopped immediately. Military commanders quickly absorbed the university project into the armed forces, creating a dedicated unit called the Rod Battalion to figure out how to mass-produce these scouts. Scaling up presented a massive logistical nightmare. International sanctions legally prohibited Iran from buying the specialized parts required to build a massive fleet of unmanned aircraft. This flowchart illustrates their solution, a vast shadow network. They set up civilian front companies in bustling trade hubs like Singapore and Dubai, purchasing regular commercial electronics in bulk and quietly shipping them back to the assembly workshops in Isfahan. In a twist of fate, the very weapons being built to counter Western military pressure were largely powered by consumer computer chips smuggled directly out of the United States. 4 decades of strict international embargoes didn't stop production. They simply forced the creators to build a cheap, untraceable supply chain that no single government could shut down. Over the years, those small plastic scouts evolved. The engineers figured out that if an aircraft could carry a camera, it could also carry explosives, leading to the development of the heavy, long-range combat models we see today. A standard attack drone costs $20,000. Defending nations must shoot it down using an interceptor missile costing $2 million. Scale that into a swarm. 100 drones cost $2 million. The defender fires 100 interceptors, burning $200 million in minutes. These drone strikes prioritize exhausting the defender's missile stockpile and defense budget over physical destruction. In a protracted conflict, a superpower relying solely on multi-billion-dollar air defense systems will eventually bleed itself dry fighting off plastic and scavenged electronics. We saw this mathematical reality play out in 2019. A barrage of cheap, low-flying drones easily slipped past advanced defense radars and struck the massive Saudi Aramco oil facilities, causing billions of dollars in economic damage. Today, these exact same methods are being exported and replicated across the globe, bringing devastating low-cost warfare directly into the skies over Eastern Europe. For decades, the wealthiest nations on Earth coordinated their economic might to keep advanced military technology out of Iranian hands. But cutting them off from expensive traditional weapons only forced 3 students in an Isfahan workshop to find a cheaper alternative. Out of sheer necessity, they built a disposable weapon that neutralized the financial advantage of the world's most powerful militaries.